In the year the King Uzziah died. So begins the 6th chapter of Isaiah, one of the most famous opening lines in all of prophetic literature. Uzziah had reigned for 52 years, and his death marked the end of an era of relative stability in Judah. Isaiah is in the temple, and what happens next is one of the most overwhelming accounts of divine encounter anywhere in the Bible. I saw the Lord, high and exalted, seated on a throne, and the train of his robe filled the palace. Above him were seraphim, each with 6 wings. With 2 wings they covered their faces, with 2 they covered their feet, and with 2 they were flying. And they were calling to one another, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord Almighty, the whole earth is full of his glory. The doorposts shake, the temple fills with smoke. And Isaiah says, Woe to me, I am ruined, for I am a man of unclean lips. The doorposts shake, the temple fills with smoke. And Isaiah says, Woe to me, I am ruined, for I am a man of unclean lips, and I live among a people of unclean lips, and my eyes have seen the King, the Lord Almighty. We read this moment today with Rollo May, the American existentialist psychologist who spent his career thinking about what happens to a human being when they encounter something that is genuinely larger than themselves. Rollo May was concerned throughout his work with what he called the daemonic, not demonic in the sense of evil, but daemonic in the original Greek sense, the deep, non-rational, non-personal force in the psyche that carries the person's most fundamental energies. In his 1969 book, Love and Will, May defined the daemonic as any natural function which has the power to take over the whole person. Sex, eros, anger, the drive to create, the drive to destroy. All of these are daemonic in May's sense when they move beyond the ego's management and take over the direction of the person. But May had a particular interest in a specific kind of daemonic encounter. The encounter with what he called the daemonic in the vocational sense, the experience of being seized by a calling that is larger than the self that is seized. The person who receives a genuine vocation, a genuine calling to a specific work that only they can do, does not experience this as a comfortable arrival at a career choice. They experience it as something that happens to them, something they cannot refuse without ceasing to be themselves. This is what happened to Isaiah in the temple. The vision of the seraphim and the throne is already overwhelming, but the psychological turn of the passage comes in the moment of Isaiah's response to it. Woe to me, I am ruined. The word translated as ruined, or sometimes as undone, is the Hebrew nidmeti, which carries the sense of being silenced, destroyed, or made to cease. Isaiah does not say, How wonderful. He does not say, I am honored to be in this presence. He says, I am undone. I am destroyed because I am a man of unclean lips. This response, the immediate self-accusation in the face of the numinous, is, as we have noted before in this series, the classic structure of the encounter with what is genuinely holy. It is not false modesty. It is the accurate perception of the radical difference between the human and the divine. The encounter with real holiness reveals, not prove, but reveals the actual condition of the one encountering it. May would say, this is the beginning of the daemonic encounter. The self that meets what is genuinely larger than itself is not immediately empowered or elevated. It is first broken open. The ordinary defenses, the ordinary self-management, the ordinary comfortable sense of one's own adequacy, all of this is dissolved in the encounter. What remains is the raw, exposed, inadequate human being. And from there, and only from there, the calling can be received. A seraph flies to Isaiah with a live coal taken from the altar. It touches his mouth. It says, "See, this has touched your lips. Your guilt is taken away and your sin atoned for." The purification is physical and it is violence. A coal, burning, glowing, dangerous, is placed on Isaiah's lips. The organ that has been identified as the site of the uncleanliness is the organ that receives the purifying touch. The wound and the healing are in the same place. May would read this as a precise image of the daemonic transformation, the vulnerability that the encounter with the numinous is exposed, the unclean lips, the inadequacy, the raw self, becomes the site of the equipping. Isaiah is not purified by having his weakness removed. He is purified by having the burning coal placed on the very weakness. The inadequacy is not replaced by competence. It is touched by fire. This is how genuine vocation works, in May's understanding. The person who is called is not the person who has all the relevant qualities and qualifications waiting to be deployed. They are the person who is broken open by the encounter, and in the breaking receives something they did not have before. What they had before the coal, unclean lips, the inability to speak what the encounter requires, is not discarded, it is transformed. The same lips that were unclean becomes the prophet's instruments. Then God speaks, not to Isaiah, not directly at first. God says, apparently to the divine council, "Who will go for us? Who shall I send?" And Isaiah, the man who a moment ago was crying out that he was ruined, says, "Here am I, send me." May would find this moment one of the purest examples in ancient literature of what he called the authentic response to the daemonic call. Because Isaiah does not volunteer in the conventional sense, he has not recovered his equanimity, made a rational assessment of his qualifications, weighed the pros and cons, and decided that this seems like a worthwhile project. He has been undone and remade in the space of a few verses. The "Here am I" is not the assured declaration of the confident man. It is the declaration of the person who has been so fundamentally altered by what has just happened to them that the only possible response to the question is this one: who will go? And Isaiah speaks before he has been asked, "Here am I, send me." May wrote about what he called the courage to create, the willingness to commit to a calling before the outcome is known, before the path is clear, before the self that will do the required work has fully come into existence. The creative person, May argued, is not the person who waits until they feel ready. They are never fully ready. They are the person who says yes to what is asking them in the full awareness of their inadequacy and discovers the capacity in the doing. Isaiah's yes precedes any knowledge of what he is saying yes to. He says, "Send me," before God has specified what the sending will require. God then tells him what the mission will entail, and it is not encouraging. He is to speak to the people, but the people will not hear. He will make their hearts dull and their ears heavy and their eyes shut, not because God wants them not to hear, but because the proclamation of truth to those who will not receive it is itself the judgment. He is to preach until the cities are desolate and the land is a ruin. Isaiah asks, "Lord, how long?" Until the land is utterly desolate, until a tenth remains, and even the tenth will be cut down again. But the stump remains. There is a holy seed in the stump. May would say the daemonic call does not promise success in the ordinary sense. The person who is genuinely called is not called to a career that will go well. Isaiah was called to a ministry that will, by external measures, fail. A people who will not hear, a land that will be destroyed. The coal on the lips is not the promise of an outcome. It is the equipping for faithfulness. Here am I. The coal is on my lips. Send me.